everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Today I'm participating in the Craft Room Helpers video hop, and we're going to be sharing with you different mediums that you can color with. There are 10 crafters in this collaboration, and each of us will be demonstrating a different medium, as well as offering a prize from one of our sponsors. But I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the video. So the medium that I'm going to be working with today are the distress crayons. And these distress crayons are definitely not new in the industry, but they are one of my favorites. And it's a medium that I feel is underrated because a lot of people are a little intimidated by these crayons and don't know exactly what to do with them. So I wanted to show you a couple of ways that I use the crayons and give you some ideas for you to use them as well. Now, because I'm going to be making a mixed media card, I didn't want to start out with some heavy cardstock. And this is just merely because I'm going to be adding some moisture to it, and I want to make sure that it holds up really well. So if you've never used any of these distress crayons, they're kind of like a lipstick feel. They are a little bit greasy per se, but they really work nicely on your cardstock. Now, there's a few ways that you can use these crayons. You can definitely spritz some water on them and use them as a watercolor, which I'm going to be showing you right now. As you saw, I just kind of put some of that crayon on my mat board and I spritzed it with water, and it does add a really nice background as far as a watercolor look. Now, if you want to go a little bit darker, you can definitely put the crayon directly on your surface. And then using your wet paintbrush, you can just move the color around. And as you can see, by putting the crayon directly on your cardstock, you're going to get a little bit darker of a look. Now, if you don't want a watercolor look and you just want to basically smear it, you can easily use your finger because you do have some natural oils in your on your fingertips that enable you to move the medium around. But if you want to be able to move it even more, there are some matte mediums out there that work great for smearing your crayons. Now, because I tend to go towards more of a grungy look, I definitely like using the matte medium because it really gives it some nice moisture to be able to spread that crayon around. Now, I'm going to be creating a background for you today, and the stamp set that I'm using is from Stampers Anonymous, and it's called Vines and Roses. And I'm going to be embossing this because I find that the crayons work really well when you have some sort of texture. So I started out by using my anti-static pouch, and I just kind of rubbed it over my cardstock. And then I took one of the stamps from the Vines and Roses set, and I added some black Archival ink. And then I just went ahead and I just put it all over my stamp, and then I added it to my cardstock. Now, whenever I'm creating a background, I find that you could definitely use your Misty or some sort of acrylic block. But on something like this, I just find it easier to put my stamp on my desk and then add my paper to the stamp that way. And because I am going towards a more of a grungy background, I wasn't really concerned of it being an exact perfect impression. I was okay with it being a little bit faded. So after I had added the ink, I went ahead and I added my clear embossing powder, and then I used my heating tool to emboss my background. Now, like I indicated, the reason that I used the clear embossing powder is because I wanted to create some texture on my background, because when you're working with these crayons, if you have some sort of texture, something for the crayon to grab onto, it works really nicely. And as you saw, there were two stamps on this set, and I chose the roses that had more of the opening because that's what I'm going to be coloring in. I'm going to be coloring the roses. But before I colored the roses, I did want to go ahead and add some color to my background. So I'm using my Picked Raspberry Distress Crayon, as well as my life-changing blending brushes from Picket Fence. Sometimes I think these names that they come up with are just really silly, because I wouldn't say that these brushes are life-changing. But I will say that I really like the fact that I had several sizes to my brushes, because I was able to use a smaller brush to kind of get into some of the smaller areas of my background. Now, I could have probably used the bigger brush, but I'm going to be coloring my roses a different color, and just having that lighter touch and that smaller brush to be able to control it was really nice. And then I took my heating tool to just kind of dry the top of the cardstock. Now, for the roses, I decided to use the red, which is called Candy Apple. And this is a really vibrant red, and which was perfect for my roses. Now, one thing I like about these distress crayons is you can get different effects. So with the pink, I just really lightly was able to brush over the distressed crayon and give it a really light background. And now I'm coming in with another crayon and I'm adhering it directly to my image, and I'm rubbing it in with my finger, and as you can see, it's a lot darker. So you can get different shades with these distressed crayons. And then after I had my crayon on all of my roses, I did get out some of that matte medium to help move the color around. Now I'm okay with the crayon going outside of the lines because, like I said, I do like a little bit more of a grunge look. So when I'm using some of that matte medium to move the color around, I'm not real particular about it staying inside of the lines. Now you can easily use a paintbrush and be a little bit more exact with your coloring, but for me, I just like it to look a little bit messy. And having imperfection on a background, I think, is completely fine. The background is not the focal point of my card. It's just merely something to give added interest. And then I also came in with another distressed crayon called Green Clover to color up some of the leaves. And as you see here, I'm using some of those picket fence brushes again, just to be able to move the color. And then once I have the background exactly the way that I want it, I will come in again with that heating tool to just kind of set my background. All right, so after my background was dry, then I did want to add just a little bit more interest. As you can see on this background, there still are some white spots, and I wanted to go ahead and use one of my small script stamps just to give it a little bit more interest on the background. Now, when I'm using these stamps, I don't necessarily, again, I'm not going for a perfect impression. I'm just, again, adding some ink to my script stamp, and then I'm lightly pushing it down just to give some of a presence on my background. And as you can see, it really is a nice effect. All right, so there is one more technique that I want to show you before I go ahead and mat my cardstock. And this is just a technique that I use quite often when I'm making kind of a grungy card. And black soot probably is one of my favorite colors for the distress crayons because it is so bold. So I'm just basically taking my crayon and I'm outlining the edge of my cardstock, and then I'm smearing it with my finger. And this really gives it a nice framing, and it really kind of finishes off the background. And then once the background was complete, it was just a matter of matting it onto some colored cardstock. All right, so let's talk about the prizes. Now I'm sponsoring my own video since I do have a shop, and I'm going to be offering up a $15 gift certificate to the digital section of my shop, and this will enable me to offer a prize up to not only people in the US but also international crafters. So in order to qualify, you're going to want to make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that you do leave a comment on the video below. Now, in order to qualify for the drawings for the other crafters, you're going to want to do the same. You're going to want to leave a comment on their video as well as subscribe to their channel. And remember, this is a hop, so I will leave the link to the next crafters video below. So be sure to check that out. So as always, I'll leave a list of all the products that I've used to create this card along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. And remember, if you want to qualify for a $15 gift certificate in my shop for the digital section, you're going to want to make sure you are a subscriber to my channel as well as leave a comment below. So I hope that you've enjoyed my video and that I've given you some ideas on how to use distress crayons for your backgrounds. Now, one thing that I didn't do, but you can definitely do, is also color these little paper dolls. I didn't do it on this particular card, but it's pretty much the same process. You can either do it with a paintbrush or directly on the paper doll. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.